Good evening, everybody. How are you doing this afternoon? Good. Good evening, Excellency, partners, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nawfar Amoul, I'm TV anchor from Dubai Media Incorporated. And on behalf of the United Nations Population Agency and Dubai Cares, I would like to welcome you to the panel event of today, A Woman Even Here, Women's Right to Safety and Dignity in Humanitarian Response. As we all know, and we are witnessing actually, the Arab state region has become home to some of the world's most challenging and ongoing conflicts and unfortunately humanitarian tragedies. During conflicts and war, women and girls become almost inconspicuous, and their everyday needs may be readily dismissed and considered secondary. In order to reprioritize women's need in humanitarian response, the United Nations Population Fund launched a campaign and entitled A Woman Even Here to highlight the suffering of women and the girl in the time of war and conflicts. A Woman Even Here, what I like about this, it is not a campaign. It is a movement that is created, a movement created by the UNFPA and partners to recognize and address the conflict and the difficult condition of women and girls under conflict situation and in humanitarian settings. Having said that, it is our honor to convene today the present highlight panel event. Over the next 2 hours, we will be interacting, we will be discussing the issue and how women even here translate in the realities of every day of our life, how we are responding, what is needed. I think the secret is what is needed from all of us as partners to come and find solution for this humanitarian crisis dedicated to, unfortunately, girls and women. Allow me to introduce our reputable speakers and panelists. Her Excellency, Mrs. Pamela Patton, United Nations Under-Secretary General and Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict. You will have with you the first keynote, Your Excellency. Welcome with us. His Excellency, Mr. L.B. Peterson, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and UNFPA Deputy Executive Director for Management. He will be with us virtually today. And after that, we will have a panel that will include Dr. Dina Asaf, United Nations Resident Coordinator, the United Arab Emirates, and the Deputy Commissioner General of the United Nations at Expo 2020. We will have His Excellency as well, Dr. Luay Shabana. He is with them, Regional Director, UNFPA Arab States Regional Office. He will be joining us in the panel. Her Excellency, Mrs. Bernadette Seen, she is the Coordinator, UN Action Against Sexual Violence in Conflict Network. She is with us here and will be joining us from Erbil. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us here personally. Mrs. Susan Arf, Director, Iraq Women Empowerment Organization. Regretfully, Dr. Tariq Al-Gourg, Chief Executive Officer at Dubai Cares, couldn't join us for an impromptu meetings. Without further ado, as we start our event, allow me to share with you a short video, A Woman Even Here, Arab Women in Humanitarian Emergency. Let's watch it together.
في المستقبل ما يصير في أولادنا اللي صار فينا.
أكيد كنت أخاف إنه عائلتي يفوتوا لنا بلحظة إنه يموتوا إخواتي وهيك ويعملوا فينا إنه إحنا سبايا.
في مناظر هون شفناها إنه ما بتروح من بالنا لا.
الحرب أثرت على النساء يعني نفسياً ومادياً.
قررنا من الخوف قررنا من الهجم.
حيث كل صخرة سجلت نفسها
60 babies are being born in the world.
قلوبنا لا تتحمل ذلك.
حرب يقع فيها الصغار والنساء.
الحرب حصلت يعني معاناة شديدة جدا. قفلوا الدكاكين والأفرام مع التخبيز.
كل الأمور اللي صارت من الحصار أثرت علينا. جوزي حاليا بدون شغل، عيلة 6 أنفار، أولاد 6 وإحنا 2 8 تنفار بدون أي دخل.
كانوا ياخذوها بمزح، يعني شو رأيكم نطلع نشوفوا على التلفزيون إنه في مخيم وهيك بالأردن. صار يعني جد. ضلينا 3 أيام على الطريق من تعب الطريق وأزمة العالم، وكان برد وقتها.
صار الحرب حيل خفنا، قصف طيران، يعني الدواعش حيل حكموا بالعالم.
آخر يوم كان لنا بحمورية إنه خلاص إنه اليوم آخر يوم للكل، يعني خلاص ما بقى في مهرب، اليوم موت الجميع رح يكون. طلعنا ركض مثل المجانين، مستقبلنا كان عم يضيع شوي شوي قدام عيوننا، يعني حتى راح 7 سنين من عمرنا هيك.
وقت الحرب بسوريا ما كنت نتزوج، جوزنا خيمة وبعد فترة الحمد لله إنه ربنا يستر وجاب لي جيرفان. طموحي كانت إنه أكثر من هيك، وبنص الطريق إنه تغير الطريق وكريات والزواج فيها، إنه ما كنت مفكرة بشيء. كنت حابة أكمل تعليمي يعني.
كان عمري وقت اللي تزوجت 16 سنة، فقدت زوجي، تيتم ابني، انحرمنا الحنية نحن 2، أم وأب وطفل، يعني أنا أخذ دورين، أخذ دور الأب والأم.
بعد سنة من الحرب تجوزت، ما يعني وافقت على هذا الزواج، جبر عليه، لأن كنت طفلة، كنت صغيرة عمري 15 سنة. جوزته، ورا ما جوزته ب8 أشهر جو الدواعش أخذوه، لحد الآن ما له خبر.
تعرضت لهذا الناسور الشرقي وأنا ما أدريش البداية إنه في ناسور الشرقي ولا هم حتى قالوا لي. لما أجت بعدين الدكتورة تخيط القطع، وجدوا إن القطع عميق، يعني راح لمنطقة الشرق. زوجي لما عرف إني تعرضت لهذا الناسور الشرقي قال هذه ما تلزمناش، هذه ناشز.
أنا بالنسبة لي كمريضة تلاسيميا لما بروح على المستشفى مش كل العلاجات متوفرة، فبصعوبة لما بتفوت لنا من رام الله، أو أحيانا كثير بنقعد بدون هذا العلاج بفوتش. لكن إني أنا بقدر أتحمل، في غير بتحملش زي مرضى السرطان الله يشفيهم.
كنت حابة أرجع يعني تهدى وضع بطننا وتصير أمان ونرجع عليه. الواحد إنه مش قادر يضل متغرب، نرجع مثل ما كنا زمان عايش بين أهلي وكلنا، وكان الأمان.
العيشة بالمخيم زينة مو زينة، بس يعني أحلم نرجع على ديرتنا.
بصراحة بنفكرش في المستقبل كتير، لأننا بنفكر برزقة اليوم قبل بكرة، بعد هيك بحلها ربنا يعني زي ما بيقولوها.
هلا ما في شيء مهم، بما انه انا ابني كان معي خلص، انا ما في شيء بنظري انه مهم اني اخذه. اول ما اجي من شغلي بيركض ماما نيني، نفس حركات ابوه، مع انه هو ما بيوعى زياده لابوه.
أول ما شفت بنتي نستني ألم الولاد والحبل، ونستني الناسور الذي كان فيه بي، ونستني الماضي اللي كنت تعيشه مع أبوها وكل شيء.
what a video to put us in the middle of the crisis. What are the girls and the women are facing right now? There are so many diverse stories that we saw and watched from 6 different countries and different humanitarian settings in the Arab world, but it is one reality that is not good, not pleasant for the women in those emergencies, humanitarian emergencies. Before the keynote of Mrs. Patton, let us start with Dr. Asif, Dr. Dina Asif, United Nations Resident Coordinator for the United Arab Emirates and the Deputy Commissioner General at the United Nations at Expo 2020. She will start with the welcome remarks. Please, Dr. Dina, the floor is yours from Abu Dhabi Online. Dr. Dina? Hi, do you hear me? You are muted, doctor. Just on your computer, if you can unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Now we hear you and we see you perfectly. Dr. Dina, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And apologies, colleagues and friends, as I wasn't able to be with you at Expo today. I'm nearby in Abu Dhabi for other reasons, but I'm there with you in spirit. So as I open the welcoming remarks after such a strong video, I want to say that I'm pleased as the UN Resident Coordinator here in the UAE to give these opening remarks to this panel event discussing women's rights to safety and dignity in humanitarian response organized by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, Dubai Cares, and the United Nations in the UAE at the Dubai Cares Pavilion at Expo 2020 Dubai. This panel complements UNFPA's Arab States Regional Office campaign, which was mentioned in the introduction, to raise awareness about women and girls' needs in humanitarian response to remind us that a woman is even here in these contexts. It is a very powerful message to ensure that we remember that women and girls are part of every conflict or every situation that we face. It is unfortunate, of course, that in the Arab region now we face some of the most challenging humanitarian crises in the world due to conflict or war, and in several countries such as Syria, Yemen, Libya, Palestine, Iraq, Somalia, among others. Meanwhile, the worsening impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated the challenges facing communities in these countries. In these contexts, as will be discussed today, women and girls suffer the most. They end up leaving their homes, get left alone without protection, may have to head their households or take the full responsibility of supporting their families, and within dire circumstances, as was explained in this video. And with all this, they also face the impeding access to life-saving sexual and reproductive health, protection, response services to gender-based violence as well. So they face more than any human being should face. Women and girls, amongst all of that, continue to have their regular needs that tend to be neglected amongst everything they face in these circumstances. As a result, their health is compromised due to the lack of health facilities and services, and they continue to face the risk of being subjected to violence without any assistance due to the distortion of all of the protection mechanisms. And as we know, when women face these challenges, it is not only them that suffer, but the whole community, their families, their children, even the men in their families, everyone suffers when a woman suffers. It gives me hope that actors like UNFPA and implementing partners on the ground, as well as donors, are providing the most possible support to these women and girls to meet their needs, to safeguard their health and dignity. And dignity, as we know, is key to our humanity. They are also not sparing any opportunity to raise awareness about the subject to all counterparts, such as your kind selves here today and the public, as we see in the Dubai Cares Pavilion, the UN Hub at Expo here in Dubai. Dubai Cares is a global strategic humanitarian actor that we're proud to work with as the United Nations on various areas of mutual interest related to our mandates on humanitarian response towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'd like to thank Dubai Cares again for hosting this important event today in their pavilion. And UNFPA is the UN agency that ensures every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled, and is working on achieving this mission in humanitarian context, and is using various venues like the UN Hub here at Expo in the Opportunity Pavilion to showcase this type of work. And like other UN agencies in the UAE, we spread the word about our achievements, successes, challenges, as well as the work that we're doing around the world. 2 weeks ago, we witnessed the display of an exhibition under the same title, A Woman Even Here, at the UN Hub here at Expo, put up by UNFPA, showing pictures from various humanitarian crises in the Arab region and presenting the health and protection challenges women and children face in humanitarian contexts. Not only was it a beautiful exhibit in the sense of the photography that was there to show the humanity of the people, but to also bring to the awareness of the public that came to see the exhibit an understanding of what we're actually talking about, that it is not theoretical, but that it is real and it affects actual people. And today I would also like to invite you to another exhibit by UNFPA, also at the UN Hub, around the same subject, but with a special focus on women and girls in the protracted humanitarian crisis in Yemen, again, bringing a reality to the ground. This current exhibit is co-hosted by UNAID and UNFPA with the United Nations and the UAE, and the generous support of the United Emirates in emergencies such as this, directed to the most vulnerable and those of women and girls, is much appreciated. I look forward to the discussion today in this panel that will happen, and also thanks to everyone who is participating and bringing us together to have this discussion on this such important topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dina. We will get back to you when we open the floor for the discussion. And now allow me to welcome to the stage Mrs. Patton, Your Excellency Mrs. Patton, Parmela Patton, United Nations Under Secretary General and Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict. Please. Welcome.
Good afternoon to all honored guests, esteemed colleagues, friends who have joined us here in the room and virtually. I'm delighted to be here in Dubai, reflecting on our global goals, including the promotion of tolerance and inclusivity, and how we can ensure that no one is left behind as we build the collective future that we want. I really wish to sincerely thank Dubai Cares and UNFPA for bringing us together, and also Dr. Kanem, a close friend, for shining a spotlight on the need to prioritize women's rights to dignity, safety, and well-being as a core value for this inclusive and prosperous future. A Woman Even Here is an important campaign, which reflects the most critical part of my mandate, the voices and needs of survivors of sexual violence. As we just saw in the short documentary, survivors like Sahar and others inspire us to redefine the way we think about and design policies and programs which are truly survivor-centered. Over the years since I took office, I have met with many dedicated people who have found healing to support other survivors with access to critical and life-saving services, as Sahar is actually doing through her work by running a UNFPA-supported midwifery clinic. As we are continually challenged by rapidly evolving emergencies and intersecting conflict dynamics, as we have seen recently in Afghanistan, Ethiopia, and Myanmar, you can count on me as I will continue to use my platform to advocate for humanitarian and service providers to have the necessary space and resources they need to deliver comprehensive and essential services such as dignity kits, post-rape kits, treatment to prevent HIV and STI, prevention and psychosocial support. In the 18 conflict and post-conflict countries currently covered by my mandate, where widespread sexual violence is still a devastating reality, women civil society organizations and service providers work tirelessly in partnership with the United Nations to respond to these needs. And I would like to take this opportunity to commend them for their dedication and courage. As we see in the escalating crisis in Ethiopia and Yemen, secure and unconditional access for humanitarian workers must be accompanied by protection measures if we are to address the ongoing risk of sexual violence and ensure the availability of life-saving assistance. And unfortunately, this is not always the case. In the Central African Republic alone, there have been over 300 attacks against humanitarian workers in 2021, making it one of the most dangerous countries for them to work. And this violence also prevents survivors from accessing the holistic care that they so desperately need in time. During the COVID pandemic, as these important voices were often muted by competing and urgent headlines, my office produced a unique anthology entitled In Their Own Words, which spans a dozen countries and includes more than 150 testimonies from survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. And this digital book also includes stories from service providers and women human rights defenders on the risk that they face on a daily basis to deliver health, psychosocial, legal services, and much more to those who need it most. In addition, my office is working on a special report of the United Nations Secretary General on women and girls who become pregnant as a result of sexual violence in conflict and the children born of sexual violence. The report, which will be launched next month, will contain a series of critical recommendations which will be presented to the Security Council and other decision makers on the range of services and support that these mothers and their children require to rebuild their lives and thrive in their societies and communities. This special report will complement the recommendations found within the Secretary General's 13th annual report on conflict-related sexual violence, which is a critical advocacy tool to address the increasingly complex and intersecting trends and patterns of sexual violence in conflict. For example, in Yemen, we see how women are targeted and silenced by the use of sexual violence as a punishment for their social activism and political engagement. In Iraq, Libya, and Somalia, and other places, violent extremists use sexual violence as a tactic of terror to control women as well as their communities. My office has worked alongside the government of Iraq and their partners to develop and enact the Yazidi Female Survivors Law, which provides assistance, reparations, and redress for survivors of atrocities committed by ISIL. The survivor-centered approach, which is articulated in Security Council Resolution 2467, adopted in April 2019, demands that survivors are heard and that their requests are reflected in all policies and programmatic decisions. This approach was exemplified in a UN Action-funded project in Somalia that supported women formerly associated with Al-Shabaab to become economically empowered as farmers and entrepreneurs as they used art to help them heal from their trauma. Some of the women pooled their money to start a cooperative in goat keeping and livestock trade, while others created their own food production and catering companies. What has become clear throughout this program is that these survivors are the architects of their own futures. The United Nations response to conflict-related sexual violence is coordinated through one of the operational arms of my mandate, known as the UN Action Network Against Sexual Violence in Conflict, UN Action shortly, which is the primary platform from which the United Nations optimizes its resources and collaboratively develops prevention strategies to address the root causes of sexual violence to stop this crime from happening in the first place. Comprising of 20 UN organizations, UN Action Network provides survivors of conflict-related sexual violence with life-saving physical and mental health and legal services. And it has worked in 22 countries and serves as the bridge between survivors, service providers, policymakers, and duty bearers. Despite its ability to be nimble and adapt to the growing and changing needs of survivors, including during the wake of the COVID pandemic, UN Action Network, for all its reach and expertise, faces chronic underfunding. And it is my sincere hope that more member states, but also private sector companies and individuals will become allies of the network and help us take forward the conflict-related sexual violence mandate. In conclusion, I would like to make 3 key recommendations. Firstly, as clearly demonstrated by a Woman Even Here campaign, let us ensure that survivors' voices are heard, not just as vulnerable individuals who require protection and the subject of international peace and security, but as agents of change. Secondly, I urge governments, private companies, and philanthropists alike to fund conflict-related sexual violence work commensurate with the scale of the needs expressed by survivors and service providers. The response required to eradicate the war's oldest crime requires sustainable and predictable funding. And lastly, I address myself to each one of you present in the room, but also to those of you following this event virtually. I ask that you be inspired by the powerful stories of survivors to take impactful action so that we can finally end the scourge of conflict-related sexual violence. Let us, each of us, tackle the root causes that allow this kind of violence to continue and fight for gender equality together. What survivors need is the encouragement and the opportunity to use their voice and a world that is ready to listen. Very little in human history is inevitable. It is often said that history repeats itself, but the truth is that people repeat history or they make the choice to take a stand and say never again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Pramila Petten, for those insightful and especially the recommendation at the end. Now, please, I want to welcome for a keynote speech, Mrs. Peterson, Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations, and UNFPA Deputy Executive for the Management, Director for Management. Is he ready, Mrs. Peterson? Yes. Hi, Mr. Peterson.
Hi, how are you? Thanks.
Everything is good. Good evening. Do you hear us? Do you hear me? Yes. We hear you and we see you.
I hear you, I see you. And good morning from New York.
Good morning.
I'm sorry I couldn't be with you there at the spot, but yeah, thanks, and thank you for your kind introduction. And thanks to Undersecretary Pramila for very strong starting intervention here. We really appreciate. So Excellencies and distinguished partners, guests, let me start by emphasizing as strong as I can the importance that the UNFPA places on the special situation of women and girls under conflict and humanitarian situations. Wars and conflicts are usually associated with images of violence and grief, with once safe homes crumbling as tent cities emerge as the new reality, and the sound of fire drowning out most other voices. And women and girls become invisible in this context. Their everyday needs, realities, and particularly their vulnerabilities may become secondary. It's a fact that over half of all maternal deaths take place in humanitarian and fragile settings. At any given moment, at least 4% of any population will be pregnant women, even in the midst of wars or fragile settings. And I think we all noted the text at the end of the video. During those 6 minutes, more than 2 women had died in the meantime. So it's clear there is a special need. There is a strong obligation on our part to work here. And without adequate support, pregnancy and childbirth could pose life threats for women, just as shells and bullets. From child marriage and adolescent pregnancy to rape, sexual violence, and trafficking, being young and female is one of the most dangerous risk factors in conflict and humanitarian settings. And these risks increase even more when girls are separated from their parents and their families. It's critical that both women and girls have access to suitable health and counseling services specifically designed to support and protect them. UNFPA calls for prioritizing women's and girls' needs in humanitarian response. And within this framework, we have launched several campaigns, and one of which is A Woman Even Here. And I like what the moderator said, that it's not even a campaign, it's a strong call, and hopefully also a movement. We're trying to address the particular context in the Arab region. A Woman Even Here is a movement to prioritize women's rights to dignity, health, safety, and well-being where it's most needed. It focuses on real-life stories to explore the faces and the lives behind the numbers. Only then can we truly appreciate how distressing women's and girls' experiences can be in conflict and humanitarian settings. I was myself recently in the Arab region on a mission, and I stopped in Iraq and Jordan. I was truly touched by the efforts led by my UNFPA colleagues and their local partners to address the special plight of women and girls on the ground. In Iraq, during my visit to the Bahirka camp for internally displaced persons in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, I met women and girls at the UNFPA supported centers. These women have not only faced multiple displacements, but they have been subjected to different forms of gender-based violence. And the stories they shared were heartbreaking. Sarah spoke about her miscarriage at 8 months due to displacement and the lack of services while on the run. Sana, a mother of 6, shared how she had to marry her 15-year-old daughter because her husband was unemployed and they could not afford to live under these difficult circumstances. Most of the women were unaware of their rights and those of their daughters. UNFPA was able to step in and provide awareness and informational education sessions to facilitate women's understanding of the risks of specific traditional practices, which are in fact harmful practices that deprive young girls from living normal lives. And thanks to these integrated sessions, Sana now knows how to protect her daughter from avoidable pregnancy complications and her siblings from the harm of early child marriage. In Jordan, during my visit to the Satari camp for Syrian refugees, I visited the UNFPA-supported center, Women and Girls Safe Space. And in that center, I was deeply moved by the art and paintings that were produced by young girls and women. I still recall the feelings of loss that the paintings depicted, silent screams that needed to be heard. Paintings expressed the psychological toll that war and conflict have on women and girls. And hopefully many more will listen. It is a fact today that the Arab States region is home to some of the world's most challenging conflicts and humanitarian tragedies. As of 2020, Yemen was declared the worst humanitarian catastrophe globally. And the Syrian crisis is now in its 11th year, and it continues to be the principal source of refugees in the world. Libya represents an ongoing state of conflict and fragility that predetermines women's lack of access to safety and stability. Palestine, Iraq, and Somalia, as well as countries like Lebanon and Jordan, where the conflict in neighboring Syria, as we know, is causing a raging refugee crisis. All these places, conditions inevitably affect the provision of basic human needs, presenting clear cases for the UN to pursue and fulfill our focused mandates. We are gathered here today under the heading Women Even Here, to stop and think for a few moments of the lives of women and girls and how they are affected by war, conflict, and humanitarian toll. Holding this panel is among the many ways that UNFPA would like to shed light on the need to safeguard the health, dignity, rights, and protection of women in the most dire of circumstances. And I know that most of us here present, we're already aware of these facts. We're already aware of those situations. We're already aware of the need for protection and services for women and girls. But let's use this panel to reinforce this movement, the Women Even Here, and let's get the message out to many more people, decision makers in the world, and not least in the Arab region. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I cannot stay with you for the whole panel, but I hope and I'm sure it'll be excellent. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Peterson. We definitely understand your busy schedules. Thank you for those stories that are heartbroken, and I'm sure there are so many of them others, and we will hear from our panelists. I want to welcome to the stage to start this panel. If you allow me, we will try to change a little bit the decor, and we will come back to you to start our panel. So let's start our discussion, our panel. I want to welcome to the stage Mr. Dr. Luay Shabana, Regional Director, UNFPA, Arab States Regional Office. Please, Doctor. Also with us here, I'm pleased to welcome Mrs. Bernadette Seen, Coordinator, UN Action Against Social Violence in Conflict Network. I want to welcome one more time Dr. Dina Asaf, United Nations Resident Coordinator, the United Arab Emirates, and the Deputy Commissioner General of the United Nations at Expo 2020. She is joining us from Abu Dhabi, and I want to welcome from Erbil Mrs. Susanna Arif, Director and Founder of Iraq Women Empowerment Organization. She is joining us as well, hopefully online. Yes, she's not with us. Dr. Mrs. Susanna, we can see you, and hopefully Dr. Also Dina will join us. Again, no, she's not joining us. Okay, so I want to start with you, Dr. Luay, and this is the question that I want to start with all of you. You have working in this field with women suffering in the humanitarian emergencies and conflict area for a long time. In your own word, Dr. Luay, how is your assessment? What do you face every day? What do they face, women and girls, in those areas of conflicts?
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me start by thanking Dubai Care for hosting this important panel. I've just been in Syria and Somalia in the last 2 weeks. And when I look at the women even here, I see it as a twofold. On one fold, we are speaking about the silent suffering, and I will use Her Excellency the words this morning when she spoke. It is the most silent and condemned crimes against women. There is a lot of challenges that are facing women, just because they are women. And during the crisis, priorities change. Access of women for health care become less likelihood to have that. Women are shouldering more responsibilities. 3 years ago, I was in Syria and I visited a village where you have women, children, and old people. Only. No single man in the village. And women are doing everything and shouldering everything. The only thing that they are not doing, taking care of themselves. So this is a silent suffering that women are really living every day. We have seen in the video, we have seen in the speeches of the USG and our ASG. But what I would like to say also, the other face, there are champions, there are hero women on the ground. I have seen that in Al Hudaydah Hospital in Yemen. I have seen that in Banadir Hospital just last week in Mogadishu. A very large hospital with 700 beds managed by 4 women, 1 woman actually. When I was listening to their presentation on how they are handling the management of this, it's really something that you are proud that you know such a woman in your life. Therefore, I think our role as UN agencies, as partners, as donors, is on one hand to extend a hand for women who are in need, but also to extend another hand for those heroes to be able to continue their mission.
Actually, that's why, Mrs. Pamela, in the third recommendation, you said, be inspired by those women that you shared with us. Mrs. Benedetta, also Mrs. Pamela said, talked about the UN action. UN action responded to calls from within the UN as well. It is partner with many NGOs working against the violence in conflict, and especially, of course, against women. Can you tell us what is your framework? What are you working on? And definitely, you heard stories that are similar and fortunately to what Dr. Luay have faced, but in different areas. But they are always the same stories almost.
Thank you very much, Naufa.
Thank you.
And I also would like to join my voice to thank Dubai Care and also UNFPA for organizing this important event because I think having it during the Dubai Expo is very important to show survivors that they do matter, and it's what we are trying to do today. So UN Action, SRG Pattern already spoke about it. We are 20-member entity, and our framework is really Security Council resolutions. So UN Action predated the office and advocated for the creation of the mandate because they saw how conflict impacted on the lives of women and girls. And you were talking about numbers, just as SD's, the Secretary General Annual Report last year, 2020, showcased that around 2,500 people survived sexual violence, were victims of sexual violence, and the majority of them are women and girls. And they are vulnerable to that. 52 parties to conflict were listed.
You get the resolution out. I want to ask you later on, was it difficult, and how you are implementing this resolution? Because we cannot have in this world crimes without accountability. I will get back to you on this, Mrs. Peterson. I want to go and welcome Mrs. Susanna Arif, Director of Iraq Women Empowerment Organization. Welcome with us. Unfortunately, we couldn't have you here in Dubai. Hopefully next time we will join us and we will meet in different or within Dubai Cares and within UNFPA. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Mrs. Suzanne? Do you hear me? Okay, can you unmute the button, please, Mrs. Suzanne? Unmute your mic. Your mic. It is red. Your computer. Yes. Now we hear you. Can you? Excellent. Mrs. Suzanne, you have this organization. It's a non-governmental, of course, voluntary and independent organization. It was established in 2004. Can you tell us about your role? What are you facing? And what women are you helping within this work? And how can you partner with other organizations also to make a successful intervention?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I really wish to be there, but still I'm happy that at least I am here virtually. Yes, I'm leading a women empowerment organization, and as you mentioned, it is not easy job. We are facing too many challenges because, you know, with the social norms that we have, the culture and the patriotic society we are live in, it is all challenges. And also the challenges how to be like to continue our work, how to sustain, how to provide the service, how to keep the trust with the community, with the grassroots. So this is all it is on our shoulder. We are doing our job to how to, like we are the frontline agent, the women organization, we are in the front line. We are listening to women needs, to understand what exactly the demand, the urgent need, and how we can amplify the voices, to raise the voices about those needs. So this is how we are doing advocacy on different levels with the international community, with government, with the local community, how to be able to respond to those needs. We were the first women organization. We raised the voice about what happened to Yazidi women under the captivity of ISIS, women survivors, not only Yazidi, but also Turkmen, Shabak, the Christian. So how to respond to the need, how to have a center to receive them, to provide with their required services. And this is how we were able to raise the voice on international community in Berlin. This is how they came to Iraq and visited the camps with Yazidi women, and this is how they took thousands of Yazidi to Germany. We as a women organization, we realized the importance of women peace security resolutions because this is the same, the content, it is the same we are asking, but the problem, no one is listening to us. But this is also the international tool. It is really important for us to strengthen our position, to strengthen our stand. So this is how we were able to advocate and to support.
Yes, Mrs. Suzanne,
Yes.
I want to get back to you as well in one round. I want to understand who are you helping now and who is helping you to address the issues of the women in Iraq, and definitely you are helping more than the Iraqi women and on the border of the Iraq as a country. Dr. Luaya will get back to you. I have some numbers that are dramatic, but every day in humanitarian setting, there are more than 500 women and girls that die from complication of pregnancy and childbirth. This is not only alarming, this is a tragedy every day because, you know, it's a birth. It's giving birth. Normally now, we are in the 21st century, it's a very easy, normal thing. How we arrived that every day we have 500 deaths, unfortunately, from the childbirth. Tell me, doctor, how do you prioritize in the UNFPA? You have a lot of issues that you are facing every day. How do you say, this is the matter that I should now focus on and we leave the other one for next? Is it a finance matter? Is it a, life issue? What is it?
Thank you very much. If you look at the map of the Arab region, you will see that we have more than 66 million people in need for humanitarian support. Out of those, there are 16 million women in the reproductive age. In 2022, we expect at least 1.7 million will be pregnant during the course of the year. And if you look at the displacement in the region, you can see that 70% or 75% actually are women and children. UNFPA is focusing mainly on women and girls. So these are our priority. Of course, we are mandated to work on issues related to young people, issues related to supporting governments on providing evidence and data collection, censuses, surveys, and all that stuff. But in humanitarian setting, women are our primary focus.
Yeah.
And particularly pregnant women, their well-being, women exposed to gender-based violence, women who are unable to access the services easily and affordably to get the high-quality services. How we do that?
Yeah.
We have, in the region, we have 15 country offices. In some cases, we have big offices like Yemen and Syria. Iraq, we have also a big office. And we have a network of local partners whom we are working with. And we're supporting healthcare facilities, primary healthcare facilities, obstetric care facilities, safe spaces for women. Therefore, the engagement that we are doing on day-to-day with our donors is to ensure that in every single campaign for humanitarian support, women should be the center. So we adopt a concept, what we call it, women-centered approach. Saving the lives of women is our priority. We say in UNFPA, one of our values is that no woman should die while she is giving birth or granting life for another human being.
Life.
Therefore, women are our focus, and we keep engaging with partners, with private sector and with donors. And at this moment, I would like to acknowledge all the support that we have been getting, but the reality needs are much more than what's available so far.
Mrs. Bernadetta, you spoke about the resolution that is 2467 that was passed in 2019. This is a milestone for you. I think you worked very hard for this. So my question is how this will be implemented in the future, because no action like those horrific crimes must go without accountability. How do you implement this resolution?
Thank you very much. So Security Council Resolution 2467, as you rightly said, is a breakthrough resolution.
Yeah.
Because it's really highlighting prevention, because we know that sexual violence does not happen in a vacuum. It can be prevented. And now we would like really to start seeing and showing how to prevent sexual violence from happening in the first place. Because since the beginning of the mandate, we've been working on response, and it is now time to really focus on prevention. So the network is working, and under the brilliant guidance of SRSG Patten, who had the idea and even started herself working on it, and realized that it was better to have it in the network where you can have 20 focal points representing their entities and draw from the mandate of their entity to contribute to this prevention framework. So we are working on it. And Resolution 2467 also talked about survivor-centered approach. We always talk about survivor-centered approach, but at the same time, very often we provide the same services to all survivors, while they don't have the same experiences. And we thought that it is also about time to try to really focus on the experience of survivors while we are giving them the support they need.
Yeah.
Resolution 2467 is also talking about survivors' empowerment. And that is the wish of UN Action, guided also by SRSG Patten for this coming year, to start focusing more on how to support survivors economically, to empower them. We've seen in the movie we just, the video we just watched, when you empower them, they have a voice.
They have a voice, and they became heroes.
And their voice is powerful.
They are very powerful women. Mrs. Suzanne, I want to raise a point that, and highlighted that Mr. Bernadette now talked about, is the prevention. You did a tremendous job in highlighting what happened with the Yazidi women in Iraq, with ISIS, unfortunately. We say that will never happen again. What is your work now, and with who you are working to prevent this from happening again? And how are you working for awareness within your NGO and others, the other partner, also to prevent this from happening again?
Yes, thank you. We are working on prevention, protection, and participation. And we believe that protection and prevention, it is really connected with participation. If there is no real participation, meaningful participation of women in decision-making, in policy development, in law, so it is really difficult to work on prevention and protection. This is why we are continuing our work, especially we have Alliance 1325, the Alliance for Women, Peace, Security Agenda, to implement the National Action Plan, focusing on the 4 pillars. We are working with different donors, but also we are working with all the community. We are our main focus is women and girls, but we are working on with all the community, with service providers especially, with capacity building, the provision of services, identifying all the gaps in the service that provided for women. We are working also with women in camps, especially also in addition to Yazidi women, also Syrian refugees. We have our listening center to provide the services for women. So this is through our daily work, we can identify all the gaps, all the needs. And this is how we can raise our voice, how to advocate, how to amplify the voice to ask for this. We can see a huge efforts from UNFPA with all the women's centers, with the shelters, with the Center for Shelters for Trafficking of Women to protect them from trafficking. But again, this is also need from us to push the government to how women issue, women agenda to become on their agenda. It is not only to be supported. They are the first responsible to allocate budget and to take this in consideration. We need for protection and prevention, for example, a comprehensive law for gender equality. Like till now, we are advocating in Iraq for the combating domestic violence law, but domestic violence law, it is not the all thing that we want, because discrimination and violence not based only inside families, it's everywhere. So this is our approach now. It is how to have a comprehensive law for gender equality.
Yeah, Dr. Dr. Luay, your work is extremely tough and hard and challenging during the normal time. Now, during the COVID, it's another level of challenge. How are you adapting to this new situation when most of the economies in the world have been hit by the crisis?
I'm not sure if we are adapting.
Okay.
Well, the whole world is not adapting, actually. I must say that the COVID has changed the agenda. We gave more attention for the health workers, for the protection of health workers, particularly women. Again, women are our focus. We have engaged strongly with the governments on keeping maternal health and gender-based services and shelters as priorities, because during the COVID, a lot of women's centers were closed. A lot of health facilities, particularly for women in their pregnancy journey, were closed, and this is something that affected our programs in many countries. And let me just bring to build on what Suzanne said. And by the way, and I greet Suzanne from here. She's one of the champions in Iraq. In addition to working on prevention, protection, participation, and the response for the needs, as mentioned by the SRSG, I think we need to, on women issues, we need to go more vocal. While we extend hand for reparation of violence against women, we should work hard to ensure that non-occurrence is one of the agenda items that are working on this. And this needs vocal engagement with governments, but also with donor community and partners to have more bold messages. And this is why in our strategic plan, for example, we have introduced the new concept of bodily autonomy. Nobody is mandated to take decisions on a woman's body. It is her own territory. It's her own life. It's her body. So I think we need to go stronger, bolder in the issues, because otherwise the soft way that has been done so far.
Dr. Luai, what do you mean bolder? Do you mean creating policy that actually Mrs. Suzanne is fighting for in Iraq? So your vis-a-vis is not only women, but government, for example, legislator, for example, in many countries. Is this what you are talking about?
We need to have a new set of stakeholders.
Okay.
We have the governments already.
Mhm.
We have the intergovernmental bodies already, but we need to criminalize. We need to work on the conception. We need to work on the mindset. We need to look at the violence against women as crimes that has to be faced by everybody in the society.
The resolution that we were talking about, 2467, is it helpful for you?
It is
Can you
one-
use it?
It is one step. It
Yeah.
is one important step. The legal framework is one step. But let me tell you,
Yeah.
and I have been in discussion on Sudan FGM, for example, last week,
Yeah.
and I have been told the ban of FGM has just been ignored by the governors or some governors. So it is important to reinforce the implementation of the laws.
And
The resolution is extremely important because they give us an entry point.
Of course.
And an
Security
umbrella to work under which. But it is very important also to create champions on the ground to be able to do a transformation. The SDGs came with transformative agenda. And we need to have this transformation at the community.
I will
level
pass
as well.
this to you, Mrs. Bernadetta. I have then two questions. First, I wanted to ask you about your challenges during the coronavirus pandemic, because you were talking to me that you want to have prevention and shelters and centers. And I'm thinking that also the agenda of your work have changed with the pandemic. This is one. And the second thing is, of course, do you need to reinforce the implementation of the resolution to adapt to the need that is brought by the UNFPA?
Thank you very much for this timely and very important question. During the pandemic for UN Action in New York and in Geneva and in Vienna, we were able still to hold our meetings online. And it's what triggered all the work we did when it comes to developing guidance documents. When it comes to the field, with a big thank you to senior women protection advisors in field mission, peacekeeping mission and political mission, but also thank to the UN country team, such members such as UNFPA, UNICEF and others. They were able to respond to some of the needs of survivors. Dr. Luai talked about it already, because we know that some medical centers were closed to survivors because they wanted to prioritize the response for the pandemic. And we really do think that sexual violence increased during the pandemic, but it's not caused by the pandemic. The root causes are there within the society, even before the pandemic. I think for West Africa, we also have, we can learn from the lessons of the Ebola pandemic, how they were able really to see the impact of gender-based violence during the social distancing. The people had to stay in their home and not go out, which triggered a lot of violence.
Yeah.
So if we need to build back better,
Yeah.
we really need to address the root causes of sexual violence. And it's a part of the prevention framework again.
This is the part of my question, the first one, that is the impact of COVID actually on your work. And now How about the point highlighted by Dr. Luay about the implementation of the resolution? And he needs more, and we need more for the women, more than one resolution.
Yes, so for the implementation, SRSG pattern, when she traveled to countries, she tried to broke agreement with government, and through framework of cooperation and through joint communique with the affected countries. And when discussing this framework of cooperation or joint communique, civil society organizations are associated, and the UN system as a whole also is associated, because she's signing that agreement on behalf of the UN system. Okay. And the latest resolution she signed in Central African Republic and in Democratic Republic of Congo included resolution 2467. Excellent. So, and it's how implementation starts. And what I said earlier, to implement, we really need means to implement. We need means. And I talked about survivors really need serious rehabilitation, not only those small income generating activities. If we want powerful survivors to be able to really fight all the bad dreams coming back and need to move on with their lives, we need to build for them serious businesses where they can empower themselves, empower also their communities.
And we saw UNFPA, what they are doing with Sahar and other of her sisters, how they raised after that from, misery to they built themselves again, because they are very powerful from inside, and they need a nudge, a help, show them the light or the road and the path, and they will take it. Mrs. Suzanne, you worked with multiple organizations actually, and one of them, highlighted by Dr. Luay, UNFPA. What is the added value for your NGOs, your organization, to work with other partners such as UNFPA?
Thank you. Of course, this is really important to have UNFPA, because this is how we can to talk about the real need for women and girls. And one of the very successful stories that I can raise here with UNFPA, it was the advocacy to keep the women shelters in Kurdistan, because the plan with the economic crisis to close those shelters. But through our advocacy, how to keep those shelters and not to close them, so we were able to have UNFPA on board and to start the support to those shelters, to provide all the required services to keep them existed till now. So this is how we are doing, and of course with many kind of training, capacity building, and also to support the listening centers. The listening centers that we are providing women inside camps, outside camp, to listen to their and also to listen them and how to provide the service, how to refer them, how to provide the counseling, the reproductive health, the trauma issue. So too many things that of course it is very successful, and we are really proud of it. But one thing that I want to talk again about, to connect it with prevention for women, it is really important to empower women, empower women not only with raising awareness, not only with providing them with certain services, but empower them economically. So this is how the transformation from a follower to be independent women, to have the right to decide for her life, to decide for her family. So this is what we want, the transformation, how women not to remain as a follower, women to be independent. So this is how we have first to support them, to empower them economically and politically. So this is, it's connected, really connected, economic and political, and the leadership of women. And in all levels, especially in the local community, how to empower them with economic empowerment, and then they will take their space, breaking the silence and talk about what they need and changing their family and community.
That made me want to ask you, Dr. Luay, you supported, of course, and partnered with the NGO that Mrs. Suzanne is directing. What else? Who else are you supporting? I'm not talking about the women who you are helping, but do you support other association, for example, agencies, small one, that are NGOs as well, in the middle of nowhere in other countries, in the Arab countries? Are you supporting them?
In fact, our work in the cases where there is no war, we work with the civil society and we work with the government, both. But in the case where we have humanitarian setting, our civil society is our main target. We have a network of NGOs everywhere in the country. Of course, there are some NGOs who have been established for a long time. For example, the Union for Women in Yemen. When I visited Yemen, I discovered that they were established before UNFPA, which is a very deep-rooted organization, and they have office in every single place in Yemen, and they have coordinator in every single village. So working with such a network is amazing. The same applies to Iraq. So we have a big network, and we work also with women missionaries. We work with the youth missionaries. The peer-to-peer education is one of the most powerful modes of transferring knowledge from young people to young people. Therefore, we have a network of partners, like what we call it, like-minded organizations, but also we engage with the faith-based organizations, because also we need to sensitize this group of society who are influential on some segments of the society. Just let me go back to what Suzanne again said about the livelihood. Livelihood is extremely important. Supporting women with means to protect themselves is very important, but also letting women know their rights in the first place from childhood is also important. This morning we were together in Dubai Police. We were hosted by the Department of Human Rights, and we were in discussion about how to ensure that people at the beginning know their rights. Second, our engagement be victim-centered as well, give them a voice, a platform to be heard, their voices to be heard, but also to participate in the engagement, in the design of the engagement, because they know their needs. Without engaging the victims, we will assume, and we are not sure that if our assumptions are really responding exactly to their needs, particularly with the scarcity of funds and resources that we're having. Therefore, in my opinion, the human rights angle is as important as the economic angle, as the social angle, as the health angle.
I will continue with you in this point. To spread this awareness, what do you suggest? Should we implement this in the education, for example? Should we implement it with many conferences and through the network, the rich network that you have? What should we do to spread this awareness about?
Today, I'm looking like to be revolutionary. And I think what we need a comprehensive institutional reform. At least I'm speaking about the Arab region when it comes to human rights. We need total institutional reform. This should be in the judicial system. Because now today, if you go to the court and has had a crime against a woman, you will find some judges who can understand this, who can find excuses for perpetrators. So we need to orient all sectors to do changes in the curriculum, in the way, in the mode of engagement, how we provide the health services. Why, for example, if we get a woman who has been raped and become pregnant, when she go to the health facility, to get to facilities to be questioned, too many questions. Who has the right to
and
do
maybe
that?
sometimes they forget the psychology support.
And also to have permission from her father, from her husband, to be able to get services.
I want to continue with you. This is an important point. Do you have it in your priority? What you are saying?
Of course. But let me be frank with you. With the humanitarian settings, with the too many priorities competing, many times this goes in the cracks because we focus on the life-saving approaches in the humanitarian setting. But in the countries where there are spaces to work on the human angle, yes. Yesterday, we concluded, and just coming from Cairo, we just concluded an expert group meeting about transitional justice approach for crimes against women. Therefore, we are also piloting such ideas to see to what extent it can succeed. In some cases, it will be confrontation with the social norms, but if we don't do that,
you have to start from somewhere.
If we don't do that, in my opinion, we will not change. According to last second, we looked, for example, at the child marriage and the FGM, and we have seen in some countries, as we said in the SDGs, we would like to reach to zero gender-based violence by 2030. But I'm telling you, there are some countries they need at least 300 years to reach the zero FGM, which is therefore I think we need, if we borrow from COVID terminology, we need a booster dose for our modes of engagement in order to break the curve and make some progress.
Dr. Luay definitely started this round of question about challenges. I would love to hear from you. What are your challenges? Is it about the funding? Is it to gather people and countries under or to follow your action, actually, UN action? What are the challenges that you are facing?
The challenges are many, unfortunately. And it starts with justice and accountability, because for many years we've been reporting conflict-related sexual violence, but when you look at, you will have a very, very small, tiny number of perpetrators that were brought into justice and went through the full justice procedure. This is one of the challenges. The other challenge again is also even collecting information because of stigma. Stigma is very high. And when sexual violence happen, before being the UN Action Coordinator, I was a senior women protection advisor in Mali, working specifically on conflict-related sexual violence. And you can find some cases where like women in the house were held with terrorist armed groups in a room for the entire night. But when they came out, they denied that something happened because they are scared of stigma. Even to be able to give them the support they need, it's difficult when the person is denying that something happened. And they are right to deny it, because if they acknowledge they have been raped, they will also lose their husband. We saw what happened in the video earlier. When the husband is aware of something happen, usually they go away and leave you alone. Yeah. So this is also another challenge, because it's difficult to really to report sexual violence in certain settings. The main challenge is also really funding, because we have a really big dream with survivors, but it's very difficult to reach those dreams without funding.
Yeah.
The CRS, Conflict-Related Sexual Violence Multi-Partner Trust Fund, was launched in 2020 during COVID, and it's now very difficult to get proper funding. Some member states are supporting, and that is the reason why we also came to be able to also interact with the government of UAE, but also with the private sector. To see how they can support survivors' rehabilitation.
Very interesting point. Mrs. Suzanne, I want to ask you about your work with Syrian girls in Iraq, actually, in refugees there. Before that, does the private sector help? Honestly.
The question is for me?
Yes, Mrs. Suzanne, yes.
Okay. Yes, of course, as Women Empowerment Organization, we supported the Syrian refugees, women and girls inside the camps with different kind of programs, with livelihood, with counseling, legal assistance, psychosocial support. It was great that we also opened the partnership with the private sector to support the Syrian refugees to at least to buy the product from the sewing that they are doing, and then to distribute it in other camps. So this is also, we were able through our advocacy, even with private sector, to attract them and to involve them to support the crisis, Syrian crisis, and how to support women and how to visit the camps, to meet with those women and how they are doing and how it's important their role to support. So this is from our side, this is also the involvement of private sector, and we are continuing our advocacy with private sector because it's not easy, and maybe also the pandemic COVID-19 affected most of the works. There was cut of like this kind of work. So we hope we will be able to continue on this.
Yes. Dr. Luay, we have a surprise later on. Hopefully it will be ready in a few minutes, an intervention that I'm really looking forward since this morning, since our coordinator in UNFPA told me about it. I'm looking forward to interview her. Dr. Luay, who do you go for funding? What do you need from them? How is their reaction?
Let me first speak about the private sector.
Yes, please.
In the oriental economies, private sector is almost subcontractor for the public sector. So we don't have this very well established norms of the private sector. Therefore, and in these economies, the issues are easier, because if we are able to grab the political support, everybody will follow.
True.
And we have very good examples actually from the region. Look at the change that is taking place in Saudi Arabia. It's revolutionary in no time, because there is political support, political commitment to make a change on the role of women, for example, in the. Of course, UAE is a great example that has been taking place since years.
Yes.
And the vision that leadership has, looking always at the future, no matter. So, and also the place from where we're coming,
Tunisia.
Tunisia, from the days of Lahbib Bourguiba.
Yeah.
and who opened a big space for women to control their bodies and to have their voices and so on. So political commitment is very good. Egypt also recently is a very good example. There is a commitment to change the infrastructure in the country. All the private sector is coming to join, and in no time they established what's called a fund called Tahya Masr. Everybody is contributing to this. So whenever there is a political commitment, things go. Now, let me go to your question. On the funds,
private
funding,
yes.
We have, of course, the regular funders for UNFPA, those who contribute to the core resources of UNFPA, and mainly the Scandinavian countries, those countries who have the ODA, UK for a long time, the US in the days of the Democrats, always they are supporting to UNFPA, and of course in humanitarian setting we have Arab Emirates, we have Saudi Arabia, who are helping particularly in the crisis of Yemen and Syria. When it comes to the private sector, I think the UN is still learning how to engage with the private sector. To be frank on this, because it's not an issue to go and approach the private sector as you approach the governments. Governments, they allocate resources to support, but the private sector, at the end of the day, they're working for profit. So you need to see how to link with the private sector, and I think we started recently in UNFPA to do very good examples on this. And now we have initiated since few months the innovation platform, and part of that is the innovative funding, and mainly in the private sector, who are now happy to participate, but they need to see their portion and to find a win-win game where not necessarily to transfer funds to us, but they can do and shoulder the mandate with us. So a number of, I don't want to mention names here, but we have big companies who have been able to allocate from their own resources to support women, to fund, to sponsor events, and to help in that.
I will stay with you, and I will come for the private sector for you. Private sector, we are talking about those multi-firm, multi-billion dollars firm. In my knowledge, they have always a budget for charity, for social responsibility.
Yes.
Why don't you grab a portion from this?
We do that. Okay. I'm not speaking about the globals.
You are talking about in each country to have the private sector.
Domestic funding inside the country. Because we have no problem.
So it's the culture then that should change in each country, that the private sector will.
In our region,
I get the point.
Giving was under the umbrella of charity, and mainly providing food.
Yeah.
إطعام الفقراء إطعام المساكين.
You think that the topic, when it is related to women, kind of make them look away? Honestly.
No.
No. Okay.
I don't think it's women
the label
per se, but the issue that they used to sponsor ولائم and food, to send food for people. Supporting food for poor, it's closer to the hearts of the Arabs rather than building a hospital.
And I think this culture is changing by the day now.
Yes, exactly.
One more question with you, briefly, if you can, Mrs. Bernadette, about the private sector. Do you approach them? Do you know how to get them on board with you?
We have recently started, so we just finalized UN Action advocacy strategy, and within that advocacy strategy, there is a component of fundraising. So when we hired a consultant to help us through this initiative, now it's when we said we need to start going to also seek the support from the private sector, because this mandate since the beginning have been fully supported by member states. So the CRSV and the UN Action MPTF that was closed in 2019 were able really to gather around $48 million divided between UN Action and the team of experts that is the other implementing arm of the mandate.
Excellent. How about we go from Dubai, we'll take you together and go and visit the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan. Let's go together. I'm looking forward really to meet Hamza, and with her is a UNFPA officer, Mrs. Abir Schreiter. Mrs. Abir is with us, and I hope Hamza is listening to us. Hamza معنا؟ سيدة مفيدة معنا؟ مرحبا عبير، كيف الحال؟ حمزة كيفك؟ How are you?
تمام. اهلا تمام معكم عبير.
تفضلي عبير، تفضلي عبير، وان شاء الله تكون تسمعنا حمزة. Is she listening to us and will come Abir with us? Abir of course is the UNFPA officer from Jordan.
Thank you so much. Yes, the voice is very clear, and Hamza is hearing us very well. So
yes, I will ask her if she is listening to me. Hamza, مرحبا بيكي. ما شاء الله عليك منورة Hamza. You are really fresh and you look really good. تتذكري لما جيتي من 2013 تقريبا جيتي للمخيم، تتذكري كيف كنتي؟ شو الحالة اللي أنتي كنتي فيها حمزة؟ How were you 5 years ago when you arrived, actually in 2013 when you arrived to the camp? How were you then? كيف كنتي حمزة؟
كانت حالتي كثير صعبة. أنا من دوني أنا وزوجي وأولادي الثلاثة، أصغرهم 3 سنوات عمره، وواجهنا مصاعب كثيرة بالطريق، وكنا كثير بحاجة يعني مي أكل كانت خالصة معنا، وكنا ننام بالصحراء، ما في معنا غطيات، ويعني كانت حالتنا يرسلها لحتى وصلنا محل الزعتر.
She arrived, of course, 2013. She was in a difficult situation. They were sleeping in the desert. They had 3 kids, her and her husband. They sleep outdoor in the desert. They didn't have what to eat, what to drink, how to see. They were desperate in a very miserable situation. من 2013 حمزة إلى الآن شو اللي تغير في حياتك؟ What changed from 2013 until now?
أول ما إجينا المخيم يعني كانت أمورنا كثير صعبة هون، كان حمامات مشتركة وكانت المطابخ مشتركة، وكنا نواجه مصاعب كثير، ما كنتش أعرف الناس اللي هون. معك صارت الأمور تتغير، وصرنا نتعرف على الناس، وتيجي منظمات لعندنا، وتعرفنا على الخدمات اللي بيقدموها بالمخيم، و يعني معك صارت الأمور تتحسن.
Now, at the beginning, of course, they had shared bathroom. Everything was difficult. She has to know new people, new area, new places where to sit, and it's a new atmosphere and ambiance for her. So, and she was discovering. حمزة ما شاء الله من أول ما جيتي من 2013 إلى الآن في حاجة أخرى تغيرت، إنه صار عندك 5 أولاد، يعني ولدين و3 بنات. هذم 2 ما شاء الله جو في المخيم. احكي لنا على التجربة، خلينا نترجم السؤال. Since she came 2013, she came with 3 kids. Now Hamza has 5 ما شاء الله, and so 2 of them were born and raised in the camp. So my question was how she lived this during the last few years. كيف عشتي هذه التجربة مع ولدين ولدوا في المخيم؟
كنت أول إشي خايفة إني ما أحمل هون، بس خبروني في هون عيادة الصحة الإنجابية بتعاملوا مع السيدات الحامل، وجيت لعندهم، زرت لعندهم، كنت بالشهر الأول، وبالفعل كما عاملوني معاملة لطيفة، وكنت آجي كل شهر، يعطوني موعد آجي لعندهم كل شهر يتابعوا الحمل معي. والحمد لله وصلت لمرحلة الولادة وأنجبت طفلتين هون، وكان الأمور بخير. وبعد ما جبت الطفلة الأولى اللي انجبتها الثنتين هون، بعد اللي ما جبت البنت الأولى عملت تنظيم أسرة. خبروني هون كمان في تنظيم أسرة، نظمت أسرتي بين الطفلتين، وبنفس الوقت خبرت هون إنه في مساحة آمنة للمرأة اللي هي نور الحسين. رحت لعندهم وشفت الخدمات اللي بيقدموها للمرأة وانبسطت فيها كثير، وخبرت بعض صيدات وانبسطن راح انه يعني شافن هالشيء هذا.
أم حمزة رجع لك الآن فقط سؤال حول هذه المرحلة الجديدة. So أم حمزة, when she was pregnant with her first girl, actually there, she went to the hospice. There she was followed from day one. Every month she has an appointment with the doctor. Every month they supported her, and she has a very good childbirth. And mashallah, she has 5 now. The other thing that she had also the possibility to talk to other women. But the thing, Dr. Luay, and for the followers that I loved what she said is the family planning that was giving to the Hamza, and I think for every woman there in the refugee camp, Dr. Hamza, correct?
In Zatari, we have an integrated package of services that includes sexual reproductive health, including the maternal health and monitoring women during pregnancy, and the obstetric services for delivery and labor, and also we have the safe spaces for women, and also the livelihood program that is in partnership with other UN agencies. So it's a package that is offered for
that was
there.
Definitely life-saving for Hamza and other women like Hamza. Hamza, نرجع لك الآن. حابة أسألك، أنت تعلمتي كثير في هذه التجربة. كيف وجدتي أنه من مسؤوليتك أنك تعرفي التجربة اللي أنت مريتي بها لبقية النسوة؟ كيف تعلمتي منها هذه التجربة ومررتيها للأخريات؟ I will translate, رح نترجم how you learned a lot from this experience, Hamza, and I wanted to ask her, how did you pass this awareness and what you learned through this difficult experience to other women not to go through what she went through during her difficult experience? حمزة, شو تعلمتي وشو مررتي لبقية النساء؟
أنا لما رحت على المركز وعرفت شو هم طبيعة شغلهم فحبيته كثير، وحكيت لبعض السيدات وحبن الشغلة هاي كثير. فأني كنت بعرف أشتغل أعمال يدوية، طرحت عليهم الفكرة لنور الحسين إنه أنا بعرف أشتغل هاي الأشياء. طبعاً أنا ما معيش شهادة، بس على خبرتي وظفوني معهم متطوعة، وصرت أعلم النساء تيجي تتعلم شغل الأعمال اليدوية، وانبسطت كثير في هذا الإشي، وكانوا يأمنون لهم المواد. وبعض السيدات الأشياء اللي علمتهن إياهم صار نشتغل فيهن ويبيعنه بمبلغ مالي إلهم برانت، يعني ضمن البيت تبعهم.
Yeah. But what is amazing is the contact with the officers there was so great that they adopted her, and she was also volunteering in the camp. That's amazing. She learned the handcraft, the making soap, the accessories, and she started selling, and of course bringing other women to teach them and to learn and to give away. I think it's a life-changing experience for her. Hamza, كيف الأولاد? How are your kids? كيف الأولاد حمزة؟
الحمد لله مبسوطين، وعندي عمره 17 الكبير
ما شاء الله،
واللي أصغر عمره 15. هم بالمدارس بيقروا هسه، عندي 4 أولاد، والبنت الصغيرة بيبي بعدها عمرها 10 شهور.
She has 5, of course. The elder is 17 years old, and she has 15 years old, and the daughter is a few years old. My point of the question that she said that they are all in school. That is my point of this question. Hamza, ما شاء الله عليكي. حمزة ما شاء الله منورة. أنت تجربة رائعة. خلتنا الكلنا خجولين من نفسنا، لأنه فعلا أنت درس بالنسبة لنا كلنا. من كل ما عشتيه في حياتك تعلمتيه، أنت علمتينا. أنت قلتي أنه عندك شهادة، صدقيني شهادتك الآن وتجربتك أعلى من شهادنا كلنا. What I said is Hamza, I thanked her for her intervention, and Hamza actually is a lesson. She humbled us all with her experience. She learned. During her intervention, she said, I don't have any degree, but actually I think her degree is the life experience that she had and how she embraced life there, and she teach other within that camp, the refugee camp. شكرا لك حمزة، شكرا جزيلا لمداخلتك معنا. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for Abir, also the officer from UNFPA from Zatari refugee camp. شكرا حمزة، تشرفت بمعرفتك. Very honored that we met. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and
thank you.
Really, we are. Thank you so much also for this opportunity for Mufida to hear from Mufida, and we have maybe a voice from Mufida now, but she is representing the voice of most refugee women in this camp.
Yes.
This camp
Definitely.
also, it's worthy to say, this is the biggest camp hosting Syrian refugees in the world. Also, this is the third biggest refugees in the world. This camp is hosting 80,000 refugees. So this is important to say, and this is give you the pictures for what is still needed, because the challenges, especially now with the COVID context, it's become really still we have a lot of challenges, and continue providing support to women and girls and this refugee camp. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Abir. Thank you so much, Abir, and special thanks for Hamza and all the Hamza there in the Zatari refugee camp. Of course, we are online, and there are followers, and they have sending questions. So I have 3 questions. They were chosen. I will start with you, Dr. Luai. As you said, I will read because I'm quoting this question. As you said, raising awareness to women and girls on their rights and an early age can save as many lives and mitigate risks as much as possible. On an advocacy level and on a policy level, these conflicts, and in a practical point of view, how do you envision this to take place?
Thank you very much for the question. This is something very important. And working in a humanitarian setting is really challenging, but it is rewarding, because people are easily taking risks, and they can listen because they are trying to find exit from the situation. With the network that we're having on the ground, we can send too many messages. But I would like to say that we need to reach a point where all of us agree that supporting women and girls is a noble mission.
Yeah.
UNFPA our partners, UNICEF, WHO, UNHCR. None of us can handle this by him or herself. We have to join, and we have to ensure that we are creating an environment that the first step to end the crimes is to let victims know their rights. Yes. And we have to do this transformation at the community level with the faith-based organizations, with the networks of the women, with the networks of the young people, with the formal and informal education, with the regional and international partners to join hands together in order to achieve this. This, on practical terms, goes through education, goes through promotion and community engagement, and goes through the outreach for those who are the farthest. And this is the importance of working in humanitarian
I will
assistance.
add on this,
Please.
that the role of media is
Absolutely.
really important. They should get on board with
This
you
media.
on this media.
This media.
This media,
Yeah.
of course. The question for you, Mrs. Bernadette, as we can see, some of the vulnerable women and conflict setting survivors are refugees and displaced persons, not just in the Arab region. In line with the most recent Women, Peace and Security Council resolution that we talked about, 2467, how are the needs of these women addressed? This is the question for you.
Thank you again for this important question, and to those following us virtually. For refugees, it's always very difficult. I think we just saw it with, and it's really difficult. They leave their homes. They are in settings that are not safe. Still, and very temporary. So what we try to do, like for UN Action, we supported funding a few years ago in Jordan for refugees in Jordan, and it helped them engage in small business and vocational training to gain some money to be able to educate their children, because and it's where it is important to really put money, because we know that when a woman is supported, the entire family is supported, the entire community is supported.
Yes. A question, thank you very much, Mrs. Bernadette. A question addressed to Mrs. Suzanne, actually. Mrs. Suzanne, how has advocacy by women rights group and NGOs supported advocacy for the particular position of women and girls in conflict and humanitarian situation? Mrs. Suzanne, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. You heard my question?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy with this question, because through the advocacy from like women organization that led, because this is how to translate the content of Women, Peace, Security agenda on local ground to develop a national action plan, and how Iraq became the first country having the first national action plan on the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Without the support of women organization, without the the advocacy, the campaigns, creating the political will, it was really difficult. And this is all the achievement of civil society, women organization, women activists, to reach this point. But this is not the end, because we know it is not important only to have the plans, the most important to implement the plans. So this is the challenge that we are facing till now, the implementation. And this is how we are continuing our advocacy for the implementation of the second national action plan, and also for all the other related resolution under the umbrella of women, peace, security agenda. We know very well we are facing too many challenges. Most importantly for the implementation, it's the budget, it's the monitoring of the implementation, and it is, of course, of the fragile, like political will in the state. So this is why the importance of the continuous advocacy and the continuous of women organization.
Yes. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, Mrs. Suzanne. Thank you, Mrs. Bernadette. Thank you, Dr. Luay. I have to highlight again that we missed the Dr. and Tariq Al-Guruk, the CEO of Dubai Cares today. He had a last-minute responsibility, and unfortunately, he couldn't join us. Hopefully next time. And of course, I want to leave the floor for you, Dr. Luay, for the closing remarks by you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for this, and thanks for all those who participated and organized this panel. And I think it was an important opportunity to speak out about and on behalf of women and to advocate for their rights. Thanks to Dubai Care for hosting. Thanks, Your Excellency, for being with us. I really appreciate that. And thanks to you. And let me, after thanking all these who have participated, including those in the room and those in virtual and my colleagues, to say that supporting women and girls is really a noble mission. The issue is not only on mobilizing funds. We need political support. Funds is needed, because needs are too much there. But it is very important to see that we are moving, although in the difficult path, but in the right path. Therefore, advocating for human rights is extremely important. Putting women in the center and as agents of change is also an important a message that I would like to have from this. The sufferings are too much, but the successes are there, and women heroes are there in the countries. In my last visit to Lebanon, we were opening a new section for warehouse for drugs and medications. And our counterpart there said, "Thank you very much. You have helped us to renovate all this with the most state-of-the-art equipment that we have, but the staff has left the country because of the situation there." Therefore, the support is not only to feed people who are in need, but also we need to support the heroes on the ground to stay there, because they can make the change. And Lebanon is not an exception. We have too many countries where good people are fleeing the country because simply they are unable to continue because of the difficult situations there. Therefore, I would like to advocate for those who would like to use their funds for charity, for good things, to think twice where to put their money. And I don't see any mission better than supporting women and girls to put their funds in. We are ready to partner, we are ready to support, and I'm sure Her Excellency and her office is ready to extend hands. All of us share the mission and the goal, but also we need to work together in order to make the transformation that is needed. Thank you very much all for being there. Thank you.
It is definitely a collective responsibility to end this massive human rights violation against the women and the girls. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, UNFPA. Thank you, Dubai Cares. Thank you, Dafira, and all the team that are amazing. They worked night and day, honestly, to make this happen. You are really great. Amazing job. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you. Thank you.